Hey, thanks for joining me in this devlog. 2 months ago I finally released my side project Walter Walnut to Steam. I'm calling it a side project, but it took more than 2 years to complete. Even though my time management may not have been the best, making a game about a flying squirrel wasn't a complete waste. In fact, finishing and releasing a game to Steam has completely shifted the way I look at game development. To explain how my game development approach has changed, let's start with a recap of the weird shooter game. The year is 2020 and I'm making a 3D version of Nuclear Throne. I wanted to make something small, so I decided to take a simple concept and turn it 3D. After working on it for a bit, I saw a video from Sebastian Laak where he made procedurally animated spiders. This video blew my mind and sent me down a rabbit hole of procedural animations. I did a bunch of random experiments like centipedes and particle creatures and even made a tutorial on it. At this point I had completely drifted away from the original roguelike idea and just made anything I wanted. After a couple more random experiments, I decided procedural animation shouldn't just be a small gimmick. It should be the central hook of my game. I took my existing character and gave it the ability to climb using creepy alien legs. I then started making devlogs about the project and continued adding new features and creatures. After every devlog I got many suggestions and ideas, and I just wanted to add as much cool stuff as possible, like robots, machines, tools and environments. Looking back, this wasn't a very good way to do game development. Adding new stuff to a game without working towards a coherent experience is usually not considered a good idea. After I stumbled upon the idea of climbing and switching forms, I never took the time to sit down and properly design a core game loop. Deep down, I knew the game lacked a foundation and a vision. As expectations for the game continued to grow, I got overwhelmed and took a step back. I made a game about a flying squirrel that turned into a 2-year project. Since then, I have finally found the energy to pick up the weird shooter game again. However, I have learned a lot in the last 3 years and I don't plan to make the same mistakes again. First, I set up a simple game design document. Luckily, I followed the course in game design last year, so I already have some experience writing design documents. I took important parts like vision, fantasy, mechanics and aesthetics and put them in the GDD. I've defined my vision for the game as follows. Formbound is a third-person shooter where you play as a squishling, a parasitic alien species. You use human hosts to fight other humans, trade, build your ship and travel to new locations. The goal is to reach the space station where your brother is held and free him. One more thing I needed in order to work towards a vertical slice was a good grasp of the game loop. My main source of inspiration for the game loop is a small game I made for a Blackthorn prod video. The idea of that game was to explore small areas in a space setting, collect resources by killing creatures, and trading those resources for ship upgrades. It's already quite similar to the original setting for my weird shooter game, so I basically took this loop and expanded on it. The shipbuilding part of the game should provide some low intensity gameplay so players don't get overwhelmed, but the majority of the game is still third-person action. Also, the shipbuilding forms an important part of the game's progression because it will allow players to travel to new areas. I'm still refining the design for the project and cutting down on the scope wherever I can. If I learned one thing from finishing my side project, it's that game development takes a long time and there's a good reason everyone tells you to scope small. Anyway, now it is time to look at what I've actually done since picking the game back up. First of all, I took the main character and put it in a brand new Unity project. The original project was quite large and had a lot of unused files, so I wanted a fresh start. The character controls and camera also used to feel very rigid, so I rebuilt some of it. Their character is slightly off-center and has dynamic lean when you turn, so it feels good to run around. I fixed some camera jitter issues to make the climbing feel smoother and added effects when you move or switch forms. I also refactored most of the character controller architecture to remove unnecessary dependencies. I then copied the settings menu from Walter Walnut and changed the colors a bit to make it match Formbound. I've set a goal to make frequent playtest builds and having a settings menu makes testing the game much easier. Then I worked on something I had always neglected while making Formbound: sound design. For some reason I never prioritized sound even though it massively affects the gameplay experience. I started by adding a basic ambient loop to make the scene come to life. I also added footstep sounds and some subtle synths for the background music. For the sound effects I wanted something sci-fi that also feels organic. After scrolling Freesound for a bit, I came across some packs from Rescopic Sound that fit quite well. I added some sounds for jumping and switching forms, and here's a small demo of how it sounds all together. Now that the game felt more alive, I also reworked the shooting system. Since shooting is one of the main mechanics, it needs to feel really good. For a while I considered using an asset like Invector, but since my character is so unique, I figured it would be better to build the shooting system myself. I took some inspirations from Returnal, since shooting in that game feels quite impactful. Instead of making blender animations for each gun like I used to do, I've set up IK using animation rigging and I animated using DoTween. For each gun I can set the hand positions and then fill out the gun profile to configure things like the ammo, the aim pose and the knockback. I've also implemented automatic firing, aim spread and dynamic crosshairs. Finally, I implemented the smooth aiming zoom using animation curves. This way when you aim, it dampens towards the end of the aim motion, and when you stop aiming it starts to zoom out slowly and moves faster over time. One of the core mechanics that I described in my new game design document is the ability to use humans as hosts. The player itself is a parasitic alien species that can take over humans to use their abilities and get some of their stats. At first I was a bit worried that adding this is just scope creep again, but then I remembered the following quote: "Good ideas spawn new ideas." Where previously many of my decisions just made the game bigger and more bloated, I believe that this actually adds new possibilities to the core gameplay. With this mechanic of using human hosts, it's now also possible for the player to not have a host, in which case the alien character will be fully visible. After a couple iterations with tails and eyes and other features, I decided to go for a super simple design that looks a little bit like a snail. I wanted to make sure it doesn't look dangerous, since it only becomes dangerous once it has found a host. So this is what I've been working on. I know it has been a long time since the start of this project and I really want it to be good. I'm also going to be focusing more on regular playtesting and I'll just make a new devlog whenever there is actually something new to show. I hope this was interesting. Thanks for watching.